Let's talk about it.
Well,
Mayor,
how are you?
what's happening?
You know what? I'm here. You're here. We're all here. I'm excited about tonight's episode. I don't want to be anywhere else but with you and my favorite group of viewers. Hey,
There
Stephanie.
you
Hey,
go.
Meg. How's it going, everybody? Everybody's getting in the chat room.
Hey,
Come on
Stephanie,
in. Come on in.
come on
Yes,
in. What's on?
you're right. I always am looking forward to this because, it's like who we get 90 minutes of hanging out together, talking about all things paranormal, meeting the
Yeah.
coolest people, having the coolest viewers. I may be a little biased, but we've got some pretty loyal viewers.
But we,
Like,
we're pretty blessed to have the viewership.
right?
We really, really are.
Allie.
So,
So,
how was your week, Mort? How was your week?
this week was good. Okay. I did a reading. I did a group session this week in the Province du Quebec in Quebec, and I was at a house I'd never been to before. And let me tell you, I have never, in all my years of doing readings, group sessions, investigations, entered a house that I will not say was evil. It was not bad. But it was the thickest energy I have ever been in. It was so heavy that I literally felt it kind of weighing me down. It was giving I did a gallery reading. So there's a group session. There's a bunch of people in the room, and I read each person as we're going, and they were getting headaches, stomach aches, feeling sick. Like, it was brutal. I had a very hard time, had a really hard time kind of getting through to people and getting through the energy because it was so tough. To the point where I finally said to them, like, you need to cleanse. Like, we need to cleanse. It's like, I need to remove myself. And so when we were finished, I kind of stepped into a different room and it would totally change. But what had happened was, here's the kicker. They live downstream. Okay, there's naturally flowing water down below. And they live downstream to a graveyard. And there's natural water flowing. And so I kept saying, this place is so transient. And just for the record, everybody, not all graveyards are full of transient spirits, but this just so happened to be all of these entities coming in. And it was really heavy. So that was kind of epic for me because you really don't see the forest for the trees until you're in the thick of it. And then you're lost. And I was like, I don't know how to fix this. Like, I don't know without removing myself from the situation. So that was kind of my week. I did I did a bunch of stuff. Yeah.
There you go. That works. That's good stuff.
Yeah.
We've been busy. We finished up filming last night for the documentary we're in, and that was on a location. Done. Long night, very busy night, very active night. Really tired.
Yeah. We should reiterate, guys, it's been a really, 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 really busy week for both of us. We had talked about the contest last week. Richard and I are going to go through the contest and we're gonna release it this week, yeah?
That's right. We will.
That's right. We'll release the names and who won, and then they're going to get a half an hour. But we said it was going to be 4 p.m. yesterday, so we wanted to get together. We haven't had time to get together to tally all the photos together to make sure that we have it right, Richard. And we will, as soon as we can. Next week's show will be letting you know who the winner is.
That's right. We will have the winner completely designated, hunted down, and we're going to have them found. Yeah.
And we got a lot of results. So we got a lot to go through.
We got a bunch we got to talk about and get situated.
Yeah.
We have a lot. Which I liked because we had a lot of interaction with our fans, which we love. Ellen, my God, woman, it's good to see you. Um, a long time since we've seen Ellen on here.
Right.
But yeah, it took me having to go all the way to Waffle House to be able to get her to come back. Yeah. Randy, what's going on? Yeah, so tonight's a fun night. We had this lady on, God, it was a year ago.
Right. Almost a year ago. That's
A
crazy.
year
How
ago.
time flies.
Yeah, and she had some really great stuff to talk to us about regarding her new book and subsequent new books coming out. Uh, yeah, it was an incredible author and also a paranormal investigator, so that helps. Uh,
Hmm.
but yeah, it's kind of nice to have that. I will tell you guys not to give it all away, but whatever shows we do between now and the end of February, you need to be prepared,
Hmm.
and you're not going to want to miss a one starting tonight. You're not going to want to miss a one.
Nope.
Nope, nope. We had such a great viewership when Jeremy Leonard was on here.
Hmm.
Was last 2 weeks ago, and great viewership. Had great interaction with our fans. The viewers loved him. He's a great guy. We're going to have a lot more people starting with tonight, for example. We got a person in here we had a great time with her last time she was here. And I'm looking forward to talking to her tonight to see what's new. I had a
Absolutely.
little sneak preview to what's been going on since we talked last, and she's going to share that with everybody. So that'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me get into her bio a little bit. So Lynn
Oh,
Monet,
sure.
author and lecturer, is an American author and lecturer. Lynn is the mother of three. She's also been a nurse for over 20 years. Crazy. Her book Omnipresent was published in 2020. Lynn has a new release coming, so it's out 2021. Called The Colors of Heaven. So we're going to be talking a lot about that tonight. And the beginnings never end. Lynn has been a guest on 22 different radio shows and podcast shows all through the world. So,
Including this one.
including this one, I know. I'm pretty excited. She's got books all over Amazon. She's got this. There's nothing this woman isn't doing. And there's the stories and the things that this woman has experienced. I'm telling you, it's not a waste of your time. If you're just tuning in now, you got to stay with us. Please stick with us. It is worth every minute. We get pretty much 90 minutes of Lynn Monet. I'm so excited.
I am too. I want to hear what's coming on, what's new. I want to hear more about what I heard earlier.
Right.
There's something we're going to have to open up someday. We're going to have to open up another show it's called the Green Room Speak, or the
Right.
Green Room Conversations. That's what we're going to have. So that's going to happen. I can see it going on.
Yes.
I think we need to bring her in. What do you think?
Let's bring her in. Let's do it.
All right, let's welcome Lynn Monet. Hey, there she is.
Hi, everybody. Hi.
Hello
Thank you
there.
so much
So glad to be
for
here.
Yeah, come on. We're glad you came.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm for everyone that is here. Please subscribe. Definitely give it a thumbs up. These people deserve that. And hello to everyone. I'm not able to see the chat, so please don't feel ignored. I do
Yes.
want to say hello to everybody and send my love.
Yes. So as you all know, we Richard is the executive producer. He sees every comment, but I do not, and Lynn cannot. So I ask you to be patient. If you have specific questions for us, please don't hesitate to put our names and tag us in the chat. We also simulcast. So we are on different networks at the same time. So we can't. I can't jump between networks. Richard can. Again, if you have a specific comment or question, don't hesitate to put us in the name, okay?
Yeah, do that so that way I can bring it up and then Lynn get a chance to be able to answer it. So if you have one specifically for her or Katie or whatever, just let us know and we'll bring it up. What's going on, Reginald Randall? Welcome to the show. I don't think I've seen your name here before.
Hi, Reggie.
Evidently, Lynn knows you.
Yes.
Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
So
Anne Marie.
What's going on, Lynn? What's been happening? What's been going on?
Well, for one thing, I'm convalescing. I just got a cast off my foot on Monday. So you're in Lynn's kitchen as I'm putting my foot up on a chair. So I've made good use of that convalescing time. I actually have now 3 books out. I just had a new release on Sunday which is The Colors of Heaven, Beginnings Never End. I originally had released Omnipresent a little over a year ago. I've written a second book in that series, of which I'm working on a third one now. There'll be a total of 5 books in the Omnipresent series. And then I will be doing a sequel also to The Colors of Heaven, Beginnings Never End after this one. But yeah, I've been busy. I also threw in another book called The Gap, which is not paranormal based, as I had mentioned to Richard. During my convalescing time, a therapist asked me to write a book for adolescents and teens about human trafficking and dating in the electronic age, and a lot of the things that aren't really discussed at the schools for like sex education and things like that. It's all the other stuff. So, you know, there's good touch, bad touch, but there's also suggestive touch, and they don't talk about that one. So that book is in editing right now as well. So I've been busy.
Wow.
Yeah, busy is always good.
Yeah, it is. So yeah, I'm looking forward to sharing with you guys tonight.
Yeah.
Well,
So,
you know-
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, let's dial it back a little bit. So these books, you did not start out wanting to be an author, right? You actually had some pretty, for those of you who are just tuning in for the first time tonight, Miss Liv Monet, you started with a really, really scary experience. Something really kind of malevolent happened to you. Do you want to kind of give us the short and curlies on that and let us know what happened to get these book credits started?
Yes, absolutely. Well, first of all, and many people have probably heard this in the chat that have come in, and some those that have not. I actually grew up in a haunted house where we lived 2 short blocks behind a hospital that was connected with a nursing home. So my siblings and I would see spirits in patient gowns walking through the house, and there was one, for instance, actually too, which is a story that I like to tell, where my brother and I were in my parents' master bedroom, and I was in my mother's jewelry box putting on her jewelry.
Do we scare her off?
And the spirit said, "Oh, there you go."
Back.
Okay, I'm sorry. Did I lose you?
No, we got you now.
Okay, I'm sorry. So anyway, my brother was playing on the floor with his Hot Wheels, and I was decorating myself in my mom's jewelry box. And my brother was fixated on the corner of the room, and I looked back to show him how beautiful I looked, and kind of looked into the corner of the room as well. And in this misting that he was fixated on, his best friend John and John's mother, the father and the brother stepped into the misting, and my brother and I, we freak out because I'm like 5 years old, he's like 7, and we run out of the bedroom, out of the 2 exits, calling for my mother, and I hear my brother catching up with my mother first, and mom, John's here. Well, she's like, well, I didn't even hear anybody knock, and he said, and they're in your bedroom. So she's like, they're in my bedroom. So she's kind of coming to see, and of course then nothing was there, and he got in trouble for that. And as time kind of progressed, when I turned 10, my mother, I had been raised Presbyterian, and my mother went through a jaunt with the Jehovah's Witnesses, which is a book in itself, but we won't go there. When I was 10 years old, because I was still seeing things, she took me in front of the elders of the church, and I was there all alone as a young girl standing there, and all of these men are telling me that what I'm seeing is demons, and that I'm not going to make it into Armageddon, and that I'm possessed, and all these terrible things, that I actually became afraid of my gifts. And even though I was seeing things, to me, when I saw something, it was a demon, and I would run out of the room just as fast as everybody else, even if it was something like my great-grandmother or somebody that I recognized. Mm-hmm. So as time moving forward, when I had been a single mother for a while, and I was looking for a house, and I came across this house that was literally too good to be true, as the realtor told me when it came up on the MLS. As a matter of fact, it wasn't even on the MLS when she called me. Her coworker had just come back from taking pictures of the house, and she called me and she said, "This house is in your price range, and it's just too good to be true." So we immediately went, and it turned out that there were 2 demons and a young man that had hung himself in the house, as well as just I mean, I had 13 different witnesses. I had multiple religions in there to get the things out, and sometimes you just can't get them out and you have to leave yourself. So it was a house that was so badly haunted that I was never able to move into it. And and that's what
bad.
yeah, that bad. And so that's what I wrote the first book about, Omnipresent. The cover of the book is an actual event that happened in the house. It is a door with these hands coming, menacing hands coming through it. My son actually had that happen while he was sitting on the master bathroom toilet, not to be vulgar, but he was. He was just 7 years old. And it left such a profound effect on him that even to this day, at almost 25 years old, he will not sleep without a bedroom light on. They talk about post-traumatic stress. When
Right.
when I designed the cover, he helped me do it because I wanted it exact. I didn't want anything fabricated. If they wanted to sit me on a lie detector test, that I would pass it with flying colors because everything was truthful, very straightforward. So it was a very, very difficult time, and not something that I would ever wish on anyone. But it is a very interesting story. If you like things that are spooky, you might want to read it with the lights on, because yeah.
Read it at 8 a.m. Don't read it at 8 p.m. Read it at 8 a.m. because it's basically
Yes.
it's true events. This is not fabricated. It is 100% true, real account of your horrific time at this house,
Yes, absolutely.
which has never changed, right? You guys, it's never once you see something and witness something like that, you can't unsee it. What people don't realize is something like this follows you for the rest of your life. I absolutely love, Lori, Lynn, I should say, how you are able to use that for therapy. Use the book to be able to get your experience out. I wish more people would do this. I wish people would be able to use it on a therapeutic level to kind of get what was on the inside out. And I applaud you for your courage and being able to not only write the book, but show the book to people, because there's so much judgment out there. You know, people immediately think it's a fictional story. How could this possibly be true? But it is true. I mean, Richard and I have witnessed this on many levels, you know, but for you to be able to recount this and explain it and show how vulnerable your family was, you know, so I applaud you for that, because, you know, it's not easy.
Well, and you know, the thing about the book is in the writing of that book, it completely disappeared twice. So I literally had to rewrite that book 3 times. And it wasn't until I put it into an SUV with a cross on it, you know, I wanted some form of religious symbol, either Jesus, Mother Mary, something to hold it. And that's what finally held it. As a matter of fact, the first time that I wrote it, I thought that maybe my kids had bumped something on my computer. So I chalked it up to that. I rewrote the whole thing again. But the second time, the file was there. All of the pages were in there, but the writing was gone. There was nothing, all of the pages, there was nothing on the pages. So, and this book that I'm going to, then there was a second book, which I'll go back to in a minute. The book that I'm going to be talking about tonight as well, The Colors of Heaven, Beginnings Never End, that book also disappeared and had to be rewritten a second time. I actually had to send my computer out to a forensic specialist. Katie, you and I spoke about this. I'm sure that you remember. And it could not be found. It was completely gone. So I had to rewrite this too. So, you know, there is demons do like to be recognized, but they don't like to be exposed. So, you know, there were some difficult issues with it and frustrating issues with it because of that. And I believe that it was the works of, you know, something darker forces that just didn't want that word to get out there. So.
For sure.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said for how energy changes in the building. And I think a lot of it, too, also has to do with the fact of who's in the building.
That's true.
So, you know, I think you had a lot of material, unfortunately, for writing a new book, but we're thankful you did. You know, that to me is I've been in a couple of books myself, and, you know, it's tedious work.
It is.
And I only wrote 2 chapters out of the book, and that was enough for me to go, no, not for me. I don't have the ability to do it. I don't have the patience to do it. I don't think my mind has the creativity at times to do it. So I applaud you for that, because it's a lot I think it's actually a lot harder writing a book than it is filming a movie because
Yeah,
of
well,
what you have to go through with it. Because it's all on you. It is entirely on you.
it's funny the way that the words start to flow, and I feel that I was connected with some other source, then that this needed to come out, because once I would start writing, I don't know where the information sometimes would even come from, or the words, that it would just kind of come through, and it matched what had happened, and it just laid out in such a perfect way. In my second book, which is called Omnipresent: What Happened Next, I wrote that because so many people after the first book wanted to know what happened to my family, what happened to the people that lived in the house. And I actually was able to contact the people that sold me the house. And that is a whole story in itself, about their children being attacked and all of those sorts of things. And then they kind of disappeared. But also with going through that experience and reconnecting with people of like mind, and people that were supportive, and people that saw things in the house at the same time that I did. So I had that validation, that so I could start nurturing my own gifts more, and trusting what I was seeing, versus questioning it or being afraid of it. So I was able to use it in my nursing field, for the good. And in the second book, I talk about several areas, including a rotation that I had to do. I'd gone back to further my degree in college, and I had to take a class in a psychiatric class, going into psychiatric wards. And actually, with the ability to have second sight, I observed what I call archons on people with addiction, and also attachments that were people that were misdiagnosed with schizophrenia, that were hearing voices, but they were really hearing voices because they had attachments on them. So, and not only that, things I got to experience too with people that don't cross over, and how a lot of times when they don't cross over, those are usually the ones that are haunting places. But a lot of times they still present with the cause of death. They sometimes show up in the clothes that they died in. They still have their mental illness and their issues and their addiction issues and things like that. And I was able to address those issues in the second book as well, that I thought would be helpful. But The Colors of Heaven is not scary. A lot of people have avoided purchasing some of the books, especially the ones that know me, because they know that I'm going to tell the truth and that it's going to be straightforward. But this book, Colors of Heaven, is a very, very beautiful story about the act of dying from a medical standpoint, watching, as well as being able to see it into a spiritual transition. The act of death itself, and some of what happens afterwards. So I'm hoping with this new book to bring a lot of comfort to people that maybe have terminal illness, or that have recently lost a loved one, and maybe help to answer some questions. So, yeah.
Okay, that's
So-
good stuff. That's good stuff.
Can I ask you, you decided to get into nursing. Obviously, you've been doing it for over 20 years now. You're very good at it. I don't just say that blowing air. I think you're very good at what you do. What can we just talk about some of your first experiences? So aside from the scary experiences in the home, let's talk about some of the first experiences you had in the hospital with people passing away, with people dying. What kind of started it for you?
Well, I had bits and pieces of things, and also, just to back up a little bit, because I didn't get to the story about my brother and his friend when we were little. It actually kind of goes back that far coming forward. After we had seen the vision of my brother's friend coming into the room, the very next day was the first day back to school after spring break, and my brother was riding the bus, and little John wasn't on the bus. And then he went to his classroom, and John sat next to him at his desk, and he wasn't there. And lo and behold, after the Pledge of Allegiance, the teacher stood up in front of the class and said that John would not be returning to class because he and his entire family perished in an accident on the way back from Disney World or wherever they went in Florida during spring break. So it happened the day that we saw them. It happened that day. And it was like John was coming in to say goodbye. And that's one of the earliest things, besides seeing the patients in the patient's gowns walking through my house, and then I went through the period of time where I pushed things away and made them dormant. But to come forward to the colors of heaven, seeing my mother pass away and actually getting to see her leave her body and that sort of thing was the key piece. There was such a beauty to it that I wanted to be able to share that with others, hoping to take the stigma of death and dying away and to understand that people don't really die. They just shed their skin and they go on, and that there is more to life than just what we have here. And really the best is yet to come, as far as that goes. So that's why I wrote it. I'll be happy to share what I saw when my mother passed away, if you'd like me to.
Yes,
Well, honestly,
absolutely.
I will tell you, yeah, I actually have seen that myself 2 times, and it's really interesting. So let's hear what your experience was with it.
Okay, well, my mother had cancer, and one thing that I'd like to say too is that a lot of times people, when they're in that transitioning stage, sometimes they'll choose to leave their body before the body even stops breathing, and they're kind of standing next to everybody in the room, or they sometimes choose to stay in until the last minute. And my mother actually chose to stay in until the last minute. And I know this because even though she was no longer had her eyes open, she wasn't able to verbalize anymore, she was, whenever somebody would say something to her, she would move her eyebrows up and down and mouth words. Like, so somebody would come in and say, like, "Hi, Phyllis," or "How's your mom doing?" And she would respond with that mouthing and the eyebrows going up and down, and it was appropriate. And as she laid there, I was the only one in the room. My brother was on his way. He was not able to get there in time. And I believe that things happen for a reason, and I was meant to see this, because having my brother there would have been a distraction. So the room started, there was this misting that kind of started wall to wall, floor to ceiling. And I could see movement on the other side of the misting. I've learned since that that's called ectoplasm. So ectoplasm, which is kind of like a portal. And, occasionally I would see like an arm or a pant leg or something stick out. And as I do tell people, they don't show up naked. Nobody wants to see their mother naked. So spirits do show up in clothing usually. However, I have seen one naked ghost, and that's in a new book that's coming out here pretty soon. So, anyway,
That's got to be rated 18A.
What's that?
It's got to be rated 18 years or older.
That's right. Yes, absolutely. So there was, towards the head of the bed on the opposite side, it started to efface, and as it thinned, I saw my mother's mother standing there, and she came through. She came up to the bed and she started stroking the inside of my mother's forearm. My mother was sitting at a slant to help her breathe easier, and my grandmother would lean forward and she would whisper, she would say something into my mother's ear. And when people are transitioning, their ability to hear telepathy opens, so they can hear the spirits talking in the room as well as the embodied people speaking in the room as well at the same time. So my mother would respond to my grandmother's actions with her eyebrows and her mouth as my grandmother would pull away. And she did this 3 different times. And I see this frantic wave behind my grandmother's head. And it was my beautiful sister, Robin, who had been murdered by a jealous boyfriend after she had just turned 20. And I could smell her perfume in the room. It just encompassed me. And I felt her come around the room and embrace me. I could feel her hair falling over my face. She had this long, dark, straight hair. And I could just feel her essence. And it was comforting. And she was wearing the same dress that she had been buried in, that she actually made herself. And she went back around the room. And that's the thing, too. Even my grandmother, she looked the exact same as I remember her. And that's the thing about when people do show up to help loved ones cross over. They will show up and present the way that you remember them last, or in a way that is familiar to you. So I said to my mother, I kissed her, I told her, I said, "Mom, Grandma and Robin are here to help you cross over. It's time to go." And of course, she did the mouthing and the eyebrow thing. And within about 10 or 15 minutes, she did take her last breath. But I'm watching all of these festivities on the other side of the room. And all of a sudden I noticed them all come towards the head of my mother's bed, and they're like in a football huddle, but they were layered. There were so many of them layered that it was almost like a peony flower. And when they opened up, my mother was standing in the middle. It was like they were trying to stabilize her spiritual feet or something. And my mother's just beaming from ear to ear. And these people, there were like hundreds of people in the room, and they were coming up to my mother. Some of them I recognized, people from this lifetime, my uncles, my great grandmother, my grandmother. You know, there were some of them that I didn't, but that my mother did recognize, and they were coming to her and greeting her, and she was so happy greeting them. I mean, the feeling of the elation that comes from that other side, there just aren't words to describe it, and we don't really have even a feeling that can totally encompass that immense love feeling that comes from the other side, and you can't help but sit there and smile. So I'm sitting there myself, grinning ear to ear. My mother's not dead. I mean, I can see her standing there. You know, she's happy. I actually want to go jump into that picture for a moment myself, you know, because I'm like, hey, can I come to the party too? You know, I'll leave. I've got kids to go home to, but I would love to be a part of that. And they were preparing this beautiful reception reunion for her. I mean, it was just, you know, oh my gosh, it was almost like I was there. I was just feeling so much of it. So as I'm watching all of this, I look over, I notice that my mother has stopped breathing, and I'm still sitting there grinning, watching everything. And of course, I'm thinking to myself, you know, I better call a nurse, because if she walks in, my mother's just died, and I'm sitting here grinning from ear to ear. She's going to think I put a pillow over her head, because that's just not a normal response, you know? So I did call the nurse. The nurse comes into the room. She pronounces my mother that she's passed away. And I asked if I could stay in the room, because the nurse where she came in from walked right through all of the spirits that were in the room still greeting my mother. And they didn't seem, you know, to be affected by it at all. I guess they were used to that. And so she left, and these people kept continuing to come up and greet my mother. And then the room started to thin out, and it thinned out down to about like 5 spirits, and my grandmother and my sister. And the way that I see spirits is I can see them out of my peripheral vision, the same as clear as I can see you. I can tell you what they have on. I can tell you what color their hair is and how it's styled. When they get a little bit closer to me, I can see maybe a lower half that actually looks more like if you're walking up to a plate glass window, say in a mall or something, and you see a reflection, it looks more like that opaque kind of look. And maybe I won't see the upper half, but I'll see like this energetic wavering to the air, kind of like gas fumes or you know, things off of a hot road type thing. And that, you know, that's how I see them. And anybody that doesn't believe in ghosts, you know, energy can't be created or destroyed, and we are energy. So it has to go somewhere. So, you know, just to add that part in, that's the scientific part. But as it thinned out, there were beings there. There were these beautiful beings there. Some of them looked angelic. There was one that looked angelic. There was one that was very, very tall with this white luminescent hair that the head was almost skimming on the ceiling. And I don't know for sure what type of spirit that was. My feeling is that it might have even been something galactic. And I'm saying that because we do have star seeds in the room. It is all connected. Everybody's right. You know, everything is connected. So you've got to realize that with all of the solar systems that there are other planets like ours, as well as planets with baby people similar to us, but a little bit different. And the energy has to go somewhere when they cross over at their point too. So yes, there are other types of beings in what we would call heaven or home that are not just from here. So that elegant being was also walking out with my mother, and I recognized my mother because she had beautiful legs, and she still had her patient gown, and I recognized her legs. And as each one's filing out past me on the left, there was a window behind me, and I don't know really, you know, the superstition of crack the window. It could have just been a coincidence. I don't know, but they were filing out that way towards the window. And they each of them made contact with the top of my head, which felt tingly to me, and then they all filed out. So that made me in that moment, seeing that beauty and how joy my mother was just so, oh my gosh, I mean, how could I grieve a loss? It wasn't a loss. I mean, she was still
so
very much
beautiful.
alive to me. Yeah, something so beautiful, and so with that being said, you have been using the second site in the nursing field. I've actually been a nurse for 37 years, so we won't go there.
37.
Yeah. So I'm going to be 60 in May. But yeah, so 17 years of that was in end of life care as a death doula. It some of the things as well as geriatrics. So I've seen a lot of people pass away, and there have been a lot of consistencies, and it is not about religion. I've seen atheists pass away. I've seen Jewish people, Presbyterian. I mean, I've seen all walks of life pass away, and a lot of the consistencies are the same. And a lot of that starts with that they, well, and first of all, I'll just say there are three kinds of death. There's natural death, which most of us have. There's sudden death, which is handled differently, and there are near-death experiences. So all of those are handled differently. Natural death, you get that beautiful reception. And when you have a sudden death, usually they don't want to come on that strong in the beginning, because here's the person trying to bargain with God for one more breath. And, to have the welcoming committee come on would be very overwhelming, because he'd be like, no, I'm not dead. Wait, I'm going to crawl back in here. I'm not ready. So they kind of wait and give the opportunity. They'll send in like one spirit person that is recognizable to the soul and help them adjust to the fact that they've crossed over. And they even kind of go through a grieving process after they've died, before they have that acceptance. So with being the natural death, a lot of times people start seeing spirits, and they start talking about seeing these spirits. And I've got several stories that are very profound that I'd love to share with you if you'd like.
Absolutely. You got a question though?
Yeah, we got a question. Nikki asked, do you feel that your medical training and almost overexposure to the extremes in the healthcare field had helped you expose your natural abilities or create it?
I think that all of us are born with these abilities. First of all, I'd like to say that. And it really is determined on how they are nurtured. A lot of times they're shut down by the family dynamic, and what you're seeing isn't real. There's no such thing as ghosts. I mean, how many times have you heard people say that? And also in the generation that you grow up in, I grew up in the 60s. So when we would talk about seeing ghosts in my household, that was shut down, because nobody wanted to have that get out into the neighborhood, and then we'd be labeled as the weirdos. You know what I mean? And the men with white coats would literally come to your house and take you away. So it all depends on that. We all have these gifts when they're nurtured. I feel very, very fortunate to have the ability to see these things. And I mean, it's not just the medical field. The medical field is a bonus, I guess you could say, in being able to connect with people that are at that point in their life where they're getting ready to cross over. So I feel very fortunate. I feel very, very blessed.
So may I ask, when you are having this experience with your mother and other people in the hospital rooms, when you're witnessing these people come through and coming to help transition the person, the loved one passing away, what feels like several minutes is actually seconds. And I feel like there's many people out there that don't know. It's kind of like blink of an eye. Did I just see what I really saw? Did that just happen? No, it couldn't be. It could be my imagination. Can you kind of add a little bit of confirmation to that and let people know that, like, explain in your words, can you explain how long it happens?
Well, it is different for everybody, but I will tell you that it does happen. And I have some stories that will definitely bring this home for you. And also, too, people have been conditioned to be so afraid of the spirits that even when a loved one starts talking about Uncle Joe in the room who everybody knows. It's not like it's a stranger, but because they passed away, they get creeped out. You know that the dead person's in the room, so they want to run and get the medication to make the person stop talking about it. But two patients, actually so many stories, but I'm going to tell the first one. I had a blind lady named Edna, that I call Edna in my book, and she was totally blind. She'd been blind for 10 years. She couldn't see shadows, couldn't see anything, and she had been on my unit for a couple of weeks, and she was actively declining. And her son and daughter come to the nurse's station, and they say to me, "Mom's talking to people that aren't there." Mm-hmm. So I said, okay, well, let me come down to the room with you and see if there's something I can do for her to make her more comfortable. And when I walked into the room, again, she's sitting in a slant, and she's reaching up into the sky with smiling from ear to ear, like she's reaching for something very delicate, like a snowflake. I mean, she was so happy with whatever it was she was reaching for. And I asked her, I said, "Edna," I said, "who's here?" She said, "George." Well, her daughter had to sit down because she said that George was her father. And she was as white as a sheet. And she said, "That's my dad's name. My father's name is George." And then Edna spoke up, and she said, "And he's happy that you're taking good care of Pixie." Well, Pixie was her poodle. And when George had passed away, Pixie had to go to the son because Edna could no longer care for the dog being blind, and Pixie was still alive. And the son speaks up, and he says, "Well, I have Pixie. I still have her dog. She's still living and she's with us." And so the son had asked me, he said, "Do you feel that my mother is hallucinating?" And of course, I can't come out and say, "Well, no, I think your father's here. She's going through what we call rallying, where she's, kind of testing the dimensions, and she's getting familiar with things as they kind of go in and out." And I said, "So do you think that she's hallucinating?" And he said, "Well, I don't know what to think." And I said, "Well, let me try something." I said, "Edna, can I ask George a question?" And she nodded her head yes. And I said, "George, what color is your son's shirt?" Now, keep in mind, this woman can't see anything. And she said, "Yellow." He had on a yellow pastel Ralph Lauren polo shirt. And in that moment, he got it. He said, "Hi, Dad." He knew in that moment that his father had to be there. And so, of course, I kind of left out of the room and, let them have that time. But there are so many stories about that. And I do see a question up here. Okay.
Yeah. Stephen says, "Do you feel your medical field of work, or that schizophrenics who are tormented by voices have often something dark attached to them?"
Yes, I do. And I've seen it with my own eyes. And particularly, and I'll go kind of off trail here. In my second book, when I did that rotation through the psychiatric ward, we went in as a group of 8 nurses with a teacher, and we were in an area that was the intake area. So we even had to sign papers that if we were attacked or had something thrown at us, that we couldn't sue the facility because these people, their meds hadn't been balanced yet. So there was a young girl, they had picnic tables that were bolted to the floor. And there was a young girl that walked over to our group, and she pointed at me and she said, "You can help me. I know you can." Well, of course, I'm embarrassed. I'm not there to be Lori, the attachment remover. I'm just there to be, I'm Lynn the nurse. So I was kind of hoping that she was talking to somebody else. And fortunately, the teacher came through at that time, and she said, "Don't make eye contact with anybody," and ushered us out. But then I was placed back into that section with another nurse, and it was just the nurse and I. And this young woman, I was sitting down at the picnic table doing my charting, and the young woman came over and sat down next to me, as well as the other nurse that was sitting across from us. And she started to tell her story. She started to tell how she had been molested when she was a child by an official in the church that she was attending, and then her mother got remarried and her stepfather started to molest her, and she ran away when she was like 16 and started to do devil worship, and she realized that wasn't for her either. But I'm sitting here looking at this girl, and she has on a tank top with spaghetti straps, and she is covered and claw marks in her ear, coming out of her nose, on her back, on places that she could not have done this to herself. They were single claw marks, and I had seen these claw marks before in the house that I had purchased that I was never able to move in. When it happened to a friend of mine while she was standing next to me in the kitchen, where she was clawed on her back and on her stomach while she was standing next to me in there. These were the same kinds of claw marks. They look like a single cat scratch is what it looked like. And she started talking about the voices that she was hearing and the fact that one of them had a long fingernail that was even scratching the inside of her female parts. So she was then called away for her meeting with her therapist or psychiatrist. And as she got up to walk away, I couldn't believe it. It looked like she had 2 clear bags the size of pillowcases, of standard pillowcases, one over each shoulder. There were these misshapen, almost potato-looking type heads is what they were, because some of them were inverted. You could see the eyes at the bottom and the mouth at the top. Some of them were not, but they were misshapen, but they were clustered together on her back like grapes. They were actually anchored at her shoulders with this horn-looking thing that attached at the top of the shoulder and underneath into the armpit. And as she started to walk away, I'm like, oh my God, she really is hearing 25 voices. She's got attachments talking to her on her back. So that is how that all started. And I did go in after she came back from her appointment. At the time myself, I had some personal things going on. I was going through a nasty divorce. I was taking care of my mother with dementia, in my own home because of the cancer that she had. So it was, and I had a 2-year-old at home at the time. So there was a lot going on, and I didn't really feel strong enough myself to go forward and take those things off. I didn't want them coming home with me, Mm-hmm. So, but I did go into the room afterwards, and I told her, I said, when you get out of here, you need to find someone that can take those attachments off of you. I believe that you're hearing the 25 different voices. You have attachments on you. And something just came over me at that point, and I just had the urge to put my finger underneath those horn type things and lift the attachments off. And I was surprised at how easily they came off, but they started to kind of scatter on the floor. So I'm trying to stomp them into the ground, and I could see where she still had some attachments that were kind of near her bed area. But I told her, I said, listen, I didn't clear up everything here. She told me that when I was taking the things off, it felt like I was pulling grass out of her back. So the things were just connected to themselves. They weren't actually into her back. But with that being said, and I did see her later on, and she was doing well. She was doing very well. She was actually going to school to become a dental hygienist. But anyway, so I started to walk around the facility looking at people differently with the second sight that I have. And I could almost pick out the ones that had addiction versus the ones that had schizophrenia, because some of them had these attachments on their backs. And I remember having a few of my fellow nursing students in there, and I said, that patient that you've got, by chance do they have schizophrenia? And they're like, well, yeah, how'd you know? Well, because I can see the attachment on their back. And it's not that I could see everybody with the attachment on that back, but the thing that was heartbreaking also is going into an area and seeing, a woman diagnosed with schizophrenia, and she's sitting at a table talking to people like she's, having a tea party or something. And I can see the spirit sitting with her and no one else can. So they're, again, treating her for this, hallucinations and things that she's having under the label of schizophrenia. They really don't know for sure what causes that, and from what I understand, there's a hospital for treatment for that that's supposed to be opening somewhere in the Midwest that actually doesn't use medication. They modify the behavior. So yes, I do believe that it is something dark. I do believe that the attachments like to go there because of the chaos that they create for the person as well as the family and the rippling effect. And they feed on that, and they feed on it, and they're able to do more physical acts. But yes, I do feel that it is darkness. Now, and then again, these people with schizophrenia, I want to say too, they're not talking about pink elephants climbing on the wall. They're talking about people talking to them. So there's a difference. There are some people that do need medication because they have imbalances. But in my opinion, not all of these people with schizophrenia have been diagnosed correctly.
Right. Wow.
Well, we got another question came in from Nikki. She said, do you feel people in these professions and in full awareness of their gifts often forget how to release or detach? How do you draw a line or recenter?
Are you meaning as far as, I'm assuming that you're meaning
Medical
as,
professionals.
pardon me?
Medical professionals.
So for you, for example, how do you recalibrate? How do you separate yourself from your work, essentially?
Well, you know, it's a whole different kind of field, especially like, for instance, I was a urology nurse for 4 years. And when you're working with body parts from the belly button to the knees, you know, they look to you like a big toe. It's not something that you would become sexually attracted to. You know what I'm saying? And then you shut that down. Exactly. And then when you're with your partner, of course, you know, those kinds of things are attractive to you with your partner. So it's that kind of detachment. Yes. Right. I hope that answers your question well, and that's what you meant.
Okay. I believe
it's a conditioning kind of thing.
So I'm curious, as a, you know, I'm a father myself, as a parent.
Well, it comes down to the
What? I'm sorry.
I think I was breaking. I'm sorry, I was breaking up. Go ahead.
As a parent,
my internet's not the best right now, but go ahead.
That's okay. As a parent, I'm actually very interested. Well, even if it's just an overview, the other book that you were asked to write about regarding therapists, psychiatrists, whatever. Mm-hmm. Talk to us about that too, because I know there are a lot of parents in this chat room watching the show that, you know, I think would be interesting. What is that book about, first of all?
Okay, I recently I was looking for a book for my own child. I wanted something, you know, schools cover the birds and the bees and how babies are made. You know, the parents try to touch in on some of the other areas, but a lot of them don't like to talk to them. I don't mean to be vulgar, but a lot of them don't like to talk to them about things like the morning after pill if your rubber breaks. You know, they don't like to talk to them about how to use a condom, an internal one for females that need to be just as responsible as putting one on a male, and also hygiene. You know, also, you know, I even talk about what your first date is like, you know, and to stay off your phone because that's rude. You want to make conversation to get to know the person, and even add little tips in there like make sure your sneakers are clean because nothing's sexy about sitting next to a cute boy with stinky shoes. So, you know, I walk them through all of these things. I also talk about this new gender revolution, if you, for lack of a better word. The hardest part about writing the book was writing it gender neutral. All of the names that I used had to be able to be used for either male or female because of all of these new situations that have evolved. But in the book, the very first chapter is called Private Parts. And it goes into everything from what a penis and vagina is supposed to look like. I'm only saying that because as a urological nurse, I had situations where people came in. I will tell this story because it'll definitely shed some light on it. I had a man come in that had his private parts covered in HPV warts. And he only came in because he wasn't able to urinate. But he had a young girlfriend that had never seen a man naked before because of her religious belief. And she had no idea that was not normal. And she ended up with cervical cancer because of the HPV virus that he had spread to her. So people need to know that if there are sores, bumps, you know, something oozing or bleeding, you don't kiss it, don't touch it, don't lick it, and run like hell. So, you know, I put things in there in a way.
You don't stutter. I love this. You don't stutter. This is amazing.
Well, the thing
Where
is,
the hell were you 20 years ago?
Well, no, it's important. It is really important. And not only that, I have lists and lists of 1-800-HELP numbers for people if they have questions. If so many times kids go to their parents and their parents are not comfortable with the idea of the child becoming sexually active, that they'll decline getting into the birth control. But they need to understand, when your child comes to you and says, hey, I need some rubbers, or I need some birth control, they're not asking your permission. They're making an announcement. So you have two choices at that point, where you either have to provide for them so that their future is protected without, having a child too soon, or you get a teenage pregnancy. Pick one. Also, again, it talks about the morning after pill. If your rubber does break, where you get it, there's no age requirement. You can get it over the counter. It does not kill anything. It just stops ovulation. Even like if you're raped or assaulted, you could use something like that as well. It also goes into choices, making good choices, talking about, how well do you know your friends? And it goes into talking about many things that even actually happened to me personally. Had a roommate. I was in a line at JCPenney, getting ready to pay for my stuff. My roommate comes up with this brand new purse, and she says, oh, will you pay for this for me? I've got to run to the bathroom. My stomach's upset, and I'll meet you at the car. Well, when I got up to the line to pay for my things, I then put her purse up there. And when the cashier opened it, it was full of makeup and jewelry and 2 shirts that were her size that she had stuffed in the purse. And fortunately, the cashier saw her handing me the purse, and I said to her, that stuff is not mine. I had no idea that it was in there. And I assumed maybe that she didn't know it was in there. So I dumped out everything on the counter, paid for the purse, took it to my car where she was waiting. And as soon as I handed her the bag, she opens the purse and wants to know where her stuff is. And she set me up. And I mean, and that kind of thing happens. You need to know who you're with. You need to know that there's no one in your car with drugs, because if you have an accident, if you get pulled over and you've got somebody in the car with drugs on them, you are also brought in with that. And that person can even look at you and say, oh, these aren't mine, they're hers. You just don't know. So it's about how to say no. I go through a whole chapter on healthy boundaries. Not only do I talk about healthy boundaries, I also give them things to say. If someone comes up and says, I want to borrow your car. Oh, I'm sorry, but I'm the only one insured on my car. So I'm the only person that can drive it. Can I borrow money? I can't loan you money, but I'd be happy to help you out in another way. To give them things to say. So because, these teenagers, right, they freeze up and they don't know what to say, and to say it in a way that it's not going, because they're afraid of having their friends be mad at them or whatever. But there's multiple chapters in there about also human trafficking. I have pictures in this book of trunk releases from the inside of the car. I tell them how to get from a back seat into the trunk and how to get from a trunk into the back seat. I tell them, if you're kidnapped and you're in a back seat and you can wiggle, how to get the seat down and how to get through to get into the trunk, then you grab that crowbar, and when that person has to pull over and get you out of that trunk, you whack them in the head and run. I talk about how a seat headrest is those prongs that go in the seat headrest can be used as a weapon or to break glass in an emergency that the car is going down, or you need to break the glass to get out of a car. So there's a lot of really, really good information in there in terms that they can read and understand that can help save their life, can help them to make better choices so that life is an easier path.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Wow.
And that is in editing right now. It will be coming out in January.
Okay, great. That's good. That's good stuff. Glad to hear it. Thank you for the overview. I appreciate it. Going to switch back to the paranormal. We've got a lot of questions.
Hi, Anne Marie.
Do you ever wear or protect your energy while working with these things?
Absolutely. I always carry. I have my little protection bag with me that I have loaded with various crystals that are protection, that have been cleansed and fully loaded. I do say, a prayer. I envision myself being protected because you don't want it, working that kind of things. Those things can jump off onto you, and you don't want to bring that kind of stuff home to your home and family and wake up in the middle of the night with your cabinets banging. So yes, you do have to protect yourself the same as you would when you go in to clear a haunting.
So
right.
what sort of things would you, what is your go-to in your go-to bag? Do you have specific crystals? Do you have something that, you could maybe, give it as an example for those that are kind of getting into something like this?
I have the dark tourmaline, I have rose quartz, I have amethyst, I have a quartz as an amplifier, I have a citrine for cleansing, because anything that a citrine touches automatically clears it, although you have to remember that when you get your crystals, they've been handled by a lot of people. You do need to clear them and neutralize them. You can put them in beach sand. You can put them, as I said, next to a citrine. If you don't have like any other means to do it, that's really the easiest. But then you also need to read up on those stones and how you charge them, because some of them you charge in the sun and some of them you charge by the moon. So it's important that they're charged and that they only have your energy on it in that bag. So I also sometimes will add some different herbs and things like that in there, depending on what I'm going to be doing. I sometimes put some agrimony or some nettles or things like that in there as well, to just as a protection with that. So yeah, I carry a couple of them. I have also. I can't think of the name of it right now. I have two other pieces in there, and I'm sorry, that kind of slipped my mind, of moltenite. No,
Moldavite.
Yes, that
Moldavite
one.
and Tektite.
Yes. Thank you. So those as well, definitely. I carry it in my pocket or I stuff it in my bra. I make sure I got it on me.
I can't do that. Carry my pocket. I can't do that. All right,
You might have an upper pocket for your glasses. You could stick it in.
Hey! Who wears glasses? I don't wear glasses.
Oh well, they have
Some of us wear glasses.
That's
That
right.
will age me another 10 years. I don't need that crap. All right. So Adam says, how do people with schizophrenia pass on? ? If they have attachments when they are alive, what happens to those attachments?
They come off. Depending, and you've got to keep in mind as well that that when people cross over, the only thing that really prevents them from crossing over is themselves. They have the option to choose to cross over or not. So when people choose not to cross over, as I mentioned, they still maintain all of the things that I had mentioned before, as far as mental illness and all of those sorts of things. But when you do cross over, that sheds with your body, because the attachments are on your body, not your soul.
Yes, ultimately, demonic entities tries to get in there to get your soul. So, the attachments can be a little bit different.
Yeah.
That's really true. So I'm just trying to read through the room here a little bit, see what else we have going on. We have a lot of content.
While Richard's looking for comments, maybe you can answer this. Has there ever been a situation where you've had to assist a spirit to cross over, or encourage the spirit to kind of go with their family members, and there's fear there?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I have a great one. I call him Dapper Dan in my book. And I love to tell this story because of the reason for which he remained on earthbound. A lot of times when souls choose not to cross over, sometimes it's because they are the caretaker for someone and they end up crossing before their loved one. So they kind of hover around a pet or a person that they've been caring for. Sometimes it's because of the beliefs that have been instilled in them that they don't feel worthy. So they stay. And sometimes, I've been in bars, I've seen dead alcoholics standing around people with drinks just trying to get a whiff. And when you ask them if they want to cross, they're like, no, I'm good. So they don't want to cross. But this one in particular, there was a lady, I was at work. I had my med card in front of a lady's room that was actively passing. And there was this sitting area in front of me. And it had pillars in it. And I see this man kind of peeking out from around the pillar. And I said to him, I said, hi. I said, he was kind of looking behind him because I guess nobody had talked to him in probably 100 years by the way that he was dressed. And so I said, no, you there. I said, why haven't you crossed over? And he realized that I was talking to him and he was a ghost. And he kind of, started to walk over, and he was a very handsome man. I mean, he he looked to be maybe his middle 30s, and he was dressed nicely, not like wealthy people, but more like upper class, upper middle class type thing. And I could see in his abdomen area that it looked like Swiss cheese, which to me, when I see someone that way, it indicates a corrosive disease like cancer or maybe cirrhosis of the liver was the cause of death. And I asked him, I said, so why haven't you crossed over? And he had this very, very heavy Irish brogue, and he came up and he said to me, "Milady, I can't cross over." And I said, "Well, sure, yeah, why? You know, I've got this lady here. She's getting ready to cross, and all of her family and her angels are here. I can hook you up, even though you don't have to be hooked up with them to cross over." I mean, this was this lady's family, but I wanted to make him feel like he wouldn't be crossing alone. And he said, you know, I can't cross over because my mistress and my wife are on the other side, and neither one knows about the other. So all of this time, he had chosen to stay earthbound because he didn't want to have to go and face either his mistress or his wife, because they, you know, he had been cheating, and then while he was alive, they didn't know. So, you know, with that being said, I did tell him, I said, well, look, you know, they know now. The cat's out of the bag, and emotions change when people cross over. They have a better understanding. There's not that jealousy or animosity or anger. And I said to him, I said, besides, your wife and your girlfriend might not even be there anymore. They might have, you know, gone on into, you know, somewhere else, a different life. You just never ever know. And not only that, I don't think that they're going to hold that grudge against you. I also told him, I said, you know, I can see you. I said, and a lot of people that would see you would normally run off screaming. So this is your opportunity. I can help you if you want me to help you. And he just kind of faded away and smiled. So I'm not quite sure whatever happened to him. That was the first time and the last time that I ever saw him. But people, you know, they do. But I have on many occasions had lost souls. And the thing about it is we all have a cord connection. And a lot of times when the lost souls are earthbound long enough in the way that I see them, some other people may see them differently. They're always looking forward or down or side to side, but they're never looking up. So I encourage them to look up, because a lot of times when they look up, that cord reconnects with them and they're able to transition in the way that I've seen it.
Okay. Good answer. Appreciate
How beautiful is that?
All right.
So just tell them to look up.
Right. Nikki said, what would you call your point of no further? Even if it was to help, but your whole being didn't want to continue.
Are you referencing to my helping or to someone who is
One's enough
dying?
enough. That's what I think what she's getting down to is one is enough enough. How far do you put yourself out there with someone to try to help them before you go, I'm done?
As far, well, I mean, that could be in a lot of different, with someone that's dying, I stay for the whole thing. I mean, because there is an actual end. When it comes to people with addiction and things like that, you do have to set boundaries on it, because those people have to be able to help themselves. And a lot of times the enabling is not allowing them even karmically to meet their goals if you don't allow them to go through some of what they need to go through to stop. In a life review for a person that has been addicted to any kind of a substance all of their lifetime, it's a very, very sad life review, because all of the things that they're reviewing, they can't even remember because they were on a substance that affected them adversely, that they couldn't even remember their daughter's wedding or the birth of their baby. So, you know, it is a wasted life, and those people are actually schooled on the other side when that type of thing happens, and they are actually placed with people on this earth that also have that same problem, that they have to kind of help teach and guide that person away from their addiction in order to help meet some of the goals, and a lot of times they are sent back through then. So
okay, so now Herbie has one.
I often talk.
Go ahead.
No, it's okay. I'm breaking up, guys. I'm really sorry. I keep getting broken up. So go ahead.
No, you're okay. So Herbie asks, is it the same for people who are diagnosed with NPD or multiple personality disorder? Because I kind of think that sort of melding of souls, is that close?
You know, again, with the MPD, it's kind of like the schizophrenia with the multiple personality disorder. But I have to say this: there's also multiple dimensions that we are actively living in, from what I've learned sometimes. So people have mentioned like very active dreams of maybe they're a fighter pilot somewhere else in space or something. One thing that I have learned is that you can be equally 6 places at one time. My father, who had a near-death experience, expressed this, as well as my mother. Some other people have talked about that too, that like you can be, when you've crossed over with your mother at the breakfast table or your father in the car driving to work, you can be simultaneously with those people. So I'm not sure really if that's an overlap with the multiple personality disorder. I mean, once you cross over, all of that kind of melds together when you with your life review. Katie, what do you think about that? Katie?
Some issues with technology right now.
Okay.
I think the hits are on the internet.
Oh, can you see me? Can you guys see me?
Yes, I can see you now. You were stuck for a
Okay,
minute.
so I can hear you. I just couldn't see you. So that is such an awesome topic. And you know how I explain it to people? You're driving in your car and you decide to turn your radio on. Okay. And so you dial it into your favorite station and the radio plays and you hear the song playing. Just because that radio station or that radio wave is coming into your car, it doesn't mean that the car beside you can't pick up the same radio wave. Okay, that's how death is, or spiritual energy is, on the other side. So I try to explain it to my clients that a spirit can be with multiple people at once. It's more of a shortwave radio in the sense that it's not as far a distance, but it can be in multiple places at once. Another thing I wanted to kind of talk about, and I think it's a great question, I try to explain to my clients, when somebody has committed suicide, okay, they don't go to the same place as everybody else. And it's not as if they go to like purgatory or like a hell, what they necessarily talk about in biblical senses, but they do go to a place that they have to, it's almost like a rehab facility, as you had spoken about with people with addiction. They have to realize that they basically failed that grade and they have to kind of come back and do it again, and guiding other people. And, do you have anything to kind of add to that?
Yes, I totally agree with that. As a matter of fact, some people that have anyway, for instance of that, like you were saying with the suicide, it kind of falls into the category of sudden death. But as you said, they don't get the grand reunion and reception that a person that had sudden death, that was unexpected and very, very sudden. They're kind of placed and having to go through schooling again, so that then they are placed back into this lifetime to go through that life again, to come to the point where they came from and ended their life. Suicide is something that is very, very, very frowned upon. People do it. We're not judged. We judge ourselves on the other side, which is another thing, but it's very frowned upon because and it's a selfish act. Not only does it affect you, but all of the people that came into this lifetime, that you were a key piece for certain things in their life in order to help them accomplish their goals, as well as on the other side. It delays things. It's just not something that is ever recommended. There are always other alternatives that can be used, even earthbound. And I've got that in that book too for the young people, by the way. Of different things, because there is so much suicide right now. You are not rewarded for the suicide. You are sent back. And sometimes the life you're sent back into is worse than the one you left. So you really, really need to think that one out. And you don't get to see your loved ones. You don't get to meet up and have all of that reunion and everything. You are met up with someone who kind of guides you through the parts that you need to go through. You do have your life review, and you get to see how you screwed up and what you missed out on too. So, you're like, oh, gee, I had no idea. Well, it's too late now. So don't do it.
I think too, we should kind of reiterate on the fact of end of life assisted suicide is different than the selfish active suicide. So somebody who's trying to kind of quicken, expedite the process of death that is at the end of life, that is not the same. You are greeted, you are met with a reception. It's not the same. But that selfish human act of, I can't take life anymore, it's the end, I don't want to deal with my problems. That is not a spiritual act. It's a human selfish act. And so that's why it's treated a little bit different.
That's true. Or you want to get even with somebody, your boyfriend pisses you off. So, you decide to, no, it's not. It's your future children, all of the people that are counting on you that you may not come in yet. You've made an agreement with and a contract with to be there to let those opportunities happen. So you cut all that off. So you're not just affecting yourself, you're affecting a lot of other souls.
Yeah.
All right. So Nikki's kind of putting more of a point onto her conversation earlier about limits. She said, I'm also retired military, and we followed a simple rule: when compromised, withdraw and regroup so that you can fight another day. She said, that's what I'm referring to. We all have our limits, and I wonder what yours, Katie's, and Richard's are. How far are you willing to go is what she's asking. How far are we all willing to go?
Well, you go first.
Oh, sure. Honestly, it depends. If it's a personal situation with a family that has needs, I'll fight to the end. I will give 110% to that. If it's a regular, what I call a fun hunt, I'm not going to stick my neck out too far. I'm just not. It's not worth compromising my health, mental or physical, for a good time. Nope, won't do it. That's not what we were given our gifts for anyway. Our gifts were given to us to be able to help people. And going into a building because it's been repeatedly haunted as hell is not the reason to give up your health, mental or physical. So I have those limitations. If it's again, like we just got done filming a documentary, and I have the paranormal hangover. I took a beating metaphysically last night, so I'm a little wiped out. That's as far as I'm willing to go. Yep. But for a family, that's a different story.
Yes, and I agree with that. And the thing that people don't realize is when you are in that setting of trying to clear a house, you are under constant attack by negative forces. So you are constantly holding up a spiritual force field to protect yourself. And the thing is, too, is if you've got other people in the room that are a little bit scared or whispering, did you hear that? They're feeding into that, and that entity is able to become stronger and do more physical acts. So you're even pounded more, and it is so exhausting. I mean, I remember one time clearing a house, and I literally slept 18 hours and only got up to pee and get water. It is that exhausting. And even with the readings for Katie, it can be draining on things, on people. And where I draw the line with things like that, and again, family, I would go to the limits. However, if I have an addict in my family, there are going to be some boundaries because I have to care for the people that actually are able to be cared for. And I can't keep, trying to get someone to do something that they don't want to do. But where I draw the line with things is people don't realize, too, that when you're doing these clearings, there's also an element in homes that your behavior is sometimes the reasons why the things are anchored there. And also, you've got to clean up your act. If you've got some guy in there with a porno addiction and you go in and you clean all of these entities out of their house and he's still in there looking at his stuff, it's rolling out the red carpet for those things to come back in. They become comfortable. They don't want to change. They don't want to have to leave, and they look for every opportunity to come back. So you have to do your part to help maintain. And if I go into a situation and a person is, they're so obsessed over the fact that they have these ghosts in their house, I won't bother because their thought patterns and their behavior, or if they're going to continue, drinking their drink, or if they're going to continue beating their wife and cheating, or whatever it is that they're doing, there's no sense in clearing out the house because it'll be reinfested within a week because they have to do their part and follow through as well and clean up their act. So, yes.
Great stuff. Good answers. But I want to say, unfortunately, we're wrapping up to the end of the night.
Unbelievable.
Oh, wow.
Your time goes fast. Talk about time flies.
I want to give you the last 10 minutes here or so to kind of just tell us how we get a hold of you, how we get your books, what's coming up, what
Yeah.
do we do for you to get a chance to learn more about you as an author and as a person. So go ahead.
Okay,
Yes.
well,
Now.
you can reach me at www.lynmonet.com, like the name. All of my books are for sale on there. The book Omnipresent is through Amazon. It's everywhere. Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Walmart. You can get it everywhere. It just opened in India and Australia. However, I will be honest, Amazon has basically stolen that book. I literally sold 68,031 copies by June of last year, and I got paid $525 for that. So, and I haven't received any payment from them since March of this year at all. And it's been $18 here and stuff like that. So I have now made it so that I'm only going to be selling my books through my website, with the exception of The Gap. When that comes out, it will be put through Amazon because it's not paranormal based. And I want it to be out there for children to be able to get and their parents to be able to get, for them to help them. So it's a book that I want to help with. It's not about the money. So, and again, none of the books are really about the money. This is really information that needs to get out there. And if you're in this kind of a chat room, you are seeking, or you are already starting to learn, but there's always more to learn because so many of us have so many different gifts, and sometimes we have multiple gifts, but we learn things from each other. So I really want the word to get out there. Right now, I have in stock, I have Omnipresent and Omnipresent What Happened Next in paperback, and also the ebook can be gotten. The nice part about getting them from me is that I will personalize them and sign them for you, and send them out. So, so if you do buy them from me and it's a gift, please leave me a note. Usually I contact you and check anyway to let you know that I did receive your order. Do you want me to make it out to you? If not, what name do you want me to make it out to? And then I go ahead and send it out. I get you the tracking number and everything. The Colors of Heaven right now released last Sunday. It is only out in ebook. I have to sell some of the books in ebook since I'm printing the book myself. The books literally cost me almost $10 a piece just to print one. So I have to make enough money with the ebooks to be able to get the books in paperback cover. So I'm trying to sell them right now. And what I would like to offer is, if anybody in the room right now wants to purchase the book in ebook, when I have the money to get the paperback book, I will send you one for free. In addition to, if you're purchasing the ebook tonight, only the people in this room right now at this moment, I'm offering that deal too. And so definitely tag me. I was in the show with you with Richard and Katie, and I will put you in my computer so that when the paper book does come out, that I make sure that you do get one. So yes, yeah.
That's
so
Please.
please,
The website one more time.
it's www.lynmonet.com. And again, The Gap, for any of you parents that think you might want this for your kids, there is I do put wording in there to let you know that it is not legal advice that I'm giving, that you do need an attorney for that, as well as that the parent really needs to read the book first to make sure that you are okay with the content, because it is not candy coated. It is not vulgar. It is straightforward. And you might even learn some things yourself, but it just, it is very direct and straightforward, but it is stuff that these kids need to have and need to know for their futures and success and even relationships. So it's
Now,
needed.
I did put your website in the chat room, everybody. So have a look, click on it, add it. You are on Facebook as well. So please, please, please search you out. Look it up, Lynn Monet on Facebook. There's many different ways. If you have more questions, right, you could certainly private message, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, you can find me through that. And I'm also, I'm actually on a show on the end of the month, on every Sunday at the end of the month, that I can be found on that too. Am I allowed to say?
Absolutely.
Okay. Yes, it's Journey Through the Gate.
Forum.
Okay. I'm on Journey Through the Gate every last Sunday of the month. I'm getting ready to start my own podcast. I've been encouraged by a very, very brilliant woman who is in the room with us at this moment, Miss Katie. And she's been a great inspiration for me. And of course, Richard, you're Superman. So it just, I appreciate you both. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to be here and to to help get this information out to help people. So I love you guys. Thank you so much.
Not a problem. We're happy to help. We're happy to have you on. We're glad to have you on. It's hard to believe it's been over a year.
Well, no, actually tomorrow is our 1 year anniversary.
Good Lord.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's 300 and how many days are in a year? I don't even remember. 365.
365.
So
300
364 days.
That's crazy. That's
Yeah.
great.
Well,
So I think we should reiterate too that you ship worldwide, right? You're available. Any of the
Well,
hardbacks you can ship worldwide, right?
I do ship worldwide. However, the mailing to countries outside of the United States has gotten so insanely expensive. It's like $40 to $50. Like if somebody in Australia or New Zealand orders one, England, it's like 30. So I highly recommend that you order the ebook if you are outside of the country. I have put it in such a way that it scrolls one page up over the other. It'll fit on your phone. It'll fit on your tablet, your computer. It's an easy read that way. And then that way you don't have the cost of any shipping and you can get it immediately. So it downloads as soon as you pay for it.
Sounds like a fantabulous Christmas gift.
Yes, yes. And you can, what it happens with that is it downloads to you and then you can forward it. Please, I know, I don't have a problem if you share it out within your family, but I am a single mom and I've been convalescing for 2 months with a cast on my foot. And I do, kind of also do this, hope that, some proceeds would come towards my way. So, please share it out a little bit on the limited side. Yeah. So anyway,
That's great.
I don't know if I said that right, but you know what I mean.
I understand.
You're good. We're not worried about it.
5
Well, Linda,
people's fine, 25. Well,
Appreciate having you out very much. It's
Thank
great
you.
having you. Love listening to your stories. You're gonna need to put
Thank
out
you.
an audio book sooner or later.
Yes, that's also next in the making as well. I agree with you. That's a great idea.
And definitely let us know when you start your podcast because we've got a bunch of viewers here that would probably love to join you.
That's
Oh,
right.
thank you. And I will be in touch. Definitely will be in touch. I actually need to talk to Katie. So I've got a list of people that would also like to have readings from you that are good people. So anyway, let me know when you have some availability and I'll send them your way.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Well, Lynn,
Okay.
thank you very much. We
Yes,
wish
thank
you
you.
a pleasant good night
Thank
and
you.
a great week. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye-bye. Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay.
Wow. As always, such a pleasure to have her. She's doing so well. I'm so proud of her in the sense that she's able to speak her truth and educate so many people on what she went through.
Well, you think there are a lot of people that have also been through that kind of stuff and never really talked about it.
Right?
I mean, her story kind of meshes with a lot of people's stories that they just haven't been told.
Yeah.
You know,
So true.
That's kind of where it's at. So what's
Giving people a voice.
huh?
It's giving people a voice.
Oh yeah. So what's coming up for you? We got 2 minutes. What's coming up for you?
What's coming up for me? So I have got readings, trying to get ready for Christmas. Next week, we're going to have a pretty cool guest coming on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for those of you who are excited about crystals, we're going to have a crystal guru coming up here. The Warrior Crystal's coming up. I'm so freaking excited. He's going to be talking all things crystals. And he's going to have some stuff, some areas for you to potentially purchase. So if you're interested about crystals, healing, charging, cleansings, all of that stuff, you got to join in next week because this guy knows. This man is a know-it-all. There's nothing this man doesn't know about crystals. So Mr. Greg Laughing Boys will be joining us.
All right. Sounds good to me. I look forward to it because I'm not, that is one area I'm not really as up on as I would like to be. So that's going to be a really good educational program for me to watch. I'm just going to sit back, shut up, and let you talk now. Yeah, not a problem.
I'm kidding. I'm not going to be able to talk. I'm going to be so excited.
Well, it's a really good learning experience. It's a really good opportunity to ask questions you may not have had a chance to ask anybody about crystals, guys. So
Right?
that the following week we're going to have Aaron G. Thompson on here from 28 Days Haunted on the 18th. Guys, this is a star-studded lineup for the next 3 months.
Yeah.
Next
Like
week,
some pretty cool people are going to be joining us. I'm really excited.
I could drop names, but I'm a little scared.
But we're not gonna.
We're not gonna. Yeah, I mean, people. Let me put it this way: there are people that if you watch paranormal television, yeah, you're gonna recognize a few.
They're going to be hanging out right here with us.
Right here. Right here. It's gonna be good stuff. Started tonight with Lynn Monet. And guys, we've had a great time with this, and we are done with our night, guys. We appreciate you all, and we love you all very much, and hope to talk to you guys next week. We'll see you then.
Bye, guys.